I say, my love, this your girl and Miss Queen coming at y'all. This is the book, The Secret Book of James, The Secret Book of James Gnostic track from the Nag Hammadi Apocryphon audio book. I have no rights to this material. This is strictly for educational purposes under the Fair Use Act of 1976.
The Secret Book of James. The Letter of James. James writes to: Peace be with you from peace, love from love, grace from grace, faith from faith, life from holy life. Secret Books. You have asked me to send you a secret book revealed to me and Peter by the Master, and I could not turn you down, nor could I speak to you, so I have written it in Hebrew, and have sent it to you, and to you alone. But since you are a minister of the salvation of the saints, do your best to be careful not to communicate to many people this book that the Savior did not want to communicate even to all of us, his 12 disciples. Nonetheless, blessed will they be who will be saved through the faith of this treatise. 10 months ago, I sent you another secret book that the Savior revealed to me. Think of that book as revealed to me, James. But as for this book, I have not yet fully understood it, and it was also revealed for you and those who are yours. So try to comprehend its meaning. This is how you can be saved, and then you should also make it known. Jesus appears to Peter and James. The 12 disciples were all sitting together, recalling what the Savior had said to each of them, whether in a hidden or an open manner, and organizing it in books. I was writing what is in my book. Look, the Savior appeared, after he had left us while we were watching for him. 550 days after he rose from the dead, we said to him, "Did you depart and leave us?" Jesus said, "No, but I shall return to the place from which I came. You want to come with me? Come." They all answered and said, "If you order us, we'll come." He said, "I tell you the truth. No one will ever enter heaven's kingdom because I ordered it, but rather because you yourselves are filled. Leave James and Peter to me, that I may fill them." When he called the two of them, he took them aside and commanded the rest to keep doing what they were doing. The Savior said, "You have been favored through the Father to receive my sayings. The other disciples also have written my sayings in their books as if they have understood. But be careful, they have done their work without really understanding. They have listened like foolish people, and they have not understood. Do you not want to be filled? Your hearts are drunk. Do you not want to be sober? You ought to be ashamed. From now on, awake or asleep, remember that you have seen the Son of Humanity, and have spoken with him and have listened to him. Woe to those who have seen the Son of Humanity. Blessed will you be who have not seen the human, or associated with him, or spoken with him, or listened to anything from him. Yours is life. Understand that he healed you when you were sick, that you might reign. Woe to those who have found relief from their sickness, for they will relapse into sickness. Blessed are you who have not been sick, and have known relief before getting sick. God's kingdom is yours. So I tell you, be filled and leave no space within you empty, or he who is coming will mock you. Being filled and lacking. Then Peter answered, Look, 3 times you have told us, be filled, but we are filled. The Savior answered and said, For this reason I have told you, be filled, that you may not lack. Those who lack will not be saved. To be filled is good, and to lack is bad. Yet since it is also good for you to lack, but bad for you to be filled, whoever is filled also lacks. One who lacks is not filled in the way another who lacks is filled, but whoever is filled is brought to an appropriate end. So you should lack when you can fill yourselves, and be filled when you lack, that you may be able to fill yourselves more. Be filled with spirit, but lack in reason. For reason is of the soul. It is soul. Believe in my cross. I answered and said to him, Master, we can obey you if you wish, for we have forsaken our fathers and our mothers and our villages, and have followed you. Give us the means not to be tempted by the evil devil. The master answered and said, What good is it to you if you do the Father's will, but you are not given your part of this bounty when you are tempted by Satan? But if you are oppressed by Satan and persecuted and do the Father's will, I say he will love you, make you my equal, and consider you beloved through his forethought and by your own choice. Won't you stop loving the flesh and fearing suffering? Don't you know that you have not yet been abused, unjustly accused, locked up in prison, unlawfully condemned, crucified without reason, or buried in the sand as I myself was by the evil one? Do you dare to spare the flesh, you for whom the Spirit is a wall surrounding you? If you consider how long the world has existed before you, and how long it will exist after you, you will see that your life is but a day, and your sufferings but an hour. The good will not enter the world. Disdain death, then, and care about life. Remember my cross and my death, and you will live. I answered and said to him, Master, do not mention to us the cross and death, for they are far from you. The master answered and said, I tell you the truth, none will be saved unless they believe in my cross. For God's kingdom belongs to those who have believed in my cross. Be seekers of death, then, like the dead who seek life, for what they seek becomes apparent to them, and what is there to cause them concern. As for you, when you search out death, it will teach you about being chosen. I tell you the truth, no one afraid of death will be saved. For the kingdom of death belongs to those who are put to death. Become better than I. Be like the child of the Holy Spirit, the head of prophecy. Then I asked him, Master, how can we prophesy to those who ask us to prophesy to them? There are many who bring a request to us and look to us to hear our pronouncement. The master answered and said, Don't you know that the head of prophecy was cut off with John? I said, Master, it is impossible to remove the head of prophecy, isn't it? The master said to me, When you realize what head means, and that prophecy comes from the head, then understand the meaning of its head was removed. First I spoke with you in parables, and you did not understand. Now I am speaking with you openly, and you do not grasp it. Nevertheless, you were for me a parable among parables, and a disclosure among things revealed. Be eager to be saved without being urged. Rather, be fervent on your own, and, if possible, outdo even me, for this is how the Father will love you. Come to hate hypocrisy and evil intention. Intention produces hypocrisy, and hypocrisy is far from truth. Do not let heaven's kingdom wither away. It is like a palm shoot whose dates dropped around it. It produced buds, and after they grew, its productivity dried up. This is also what happened with fruit that came from this single root. After it was harvested, fruit was obtained by many. It certainly would be good if you could produce new growth now. You would find it. Since I was glorified like this once before, why do you hold me back when I am eager to go? After my labor, you have made me stay with you another 18 days because of the parables. For some people, it was enough to listen to the teaching and understand the shepherds, the seed, the building, the lamps of the young women, the wage of the workers, and the silver coins and the woman. Be eager for the word. The first aspect of the word is faith. The second is love. The third is works, and from these comes life. The word is like a grain of wheat. When someone sowed it, he had faith in it, and when it sprouted, he loved it, because he saw many grains instead of just one. And after he worked, he was saved because he prepared it as food, and he still kept some out to sow. This is also how you can acquire a kingdom's heaven for yourselves. Unless you acquire it through knowledge, you will not be able to find it. Be sober, be saved. So I say to you, be sober, do not go astray. And often have I said to you all together, and also to you alone, James, be saved. I have commanded you to follow me, and I have taught you how to speak before the rulers. See that I have come down and have spoken, and have exerted myself, and have won my crown when I saved you. I came down to live with you, that you might also live with me. And when I found that your houses had no roofs, I lived in houses that could receive me when I came down. Trust in me, my brothers. Understand what the great light is. The Father does not need me. A father does not need a son, but it is the Son who needs the Father. To him I am going, for the Father of the Son is not in need of you. Listen to the word, understand knowledge, love life, and no one will persecute you, and no one will oppress you other than yourselves. Woe to you, blessed are you. You wretches, you poor devils, you pretenders to truth, you falsifiers of knowledge, you sinners against the Spirit. Do you still dare to listen when from the beginning you should have been speaking? Do you still dare to sleep when from the beginning you should have been awake so that heaven's kingdom might receive you? I tell you the truth. It is easier for a holy person to sink into defilement and for an enlightened person to sink into darkness than for you to reign or not to reign. I have remembered your tears, your mourning, your grief. They are far from us. You who are outside the Father's inheritance, weep when you should, mourn, and preach what is good. The sun is ascending as is proper. Tell you the truth, if I had been sent to those who would listen to me and had spoken with them, I would never have come down to earth. Now, be ashamed. Look, I shall be leaving you and go away, and I do not want to stay with you any longer, just as you yourselves have not wanted this. Follow me quickly. This is why I tell you, for you I came down. You are loved ones. You are the ones who will bring life to many people. Invoke the Father. Pray to God frequently, and he will be generous with you. Blessed is one who has seen you with him, when he is proclaimed among the angels and glorified among the saints. Yours is life. Rejoice and be glad as children of God. Observe his will that you may be saved. Accept correction from me and save yourselves. I am mediating for you with the Father, and he will forgive you many things. You find heaven's kingdom. When we heard this, we were delighted. We had become gloomy because of what we said earlier, but when he saw us happy, he said, Woe to you who are in need of an advocate. Woe to you who stand in need of grace. Blessed will they be who have spoken out and acquired grace for themselves. Compare yourselves to foreigners. How are they viewed in your city? Why are you anxious to banish yourselves on your own and distance yourselves from your city? Why abandon your dwelling on your own and make it available for those who want to live in it? You exiles and runaways, woe to you, for you will be captured. Or maybe you think that the Father is a lover of humanity, or that he is won over by prayers, or that he is gracious to one because of another, or that he tolerates whoever is seeking. He knows about desire and what the flesh needs. Doesn't it desire the soul? The body does not sin apart from the soul, just as the soul is not saved apart from the spirit. But if the soul is saved from evil, and the
Shout
spirit
out,
too is
Devon.
saved,
I see you
the
came back to
body
holler at your girl.
becomes sinless. The spirit animates the soul, but the body kills it. The soul kills itself. I tell you the truth. He certainly will not forgive the sin of the soul or the guilt of the flesh,
Yeah, I came
for
back,
none of
boo.
those who have worn the flesh will be saved. Do you think that many have found heaven's kingdom? Blessed is one who has seen oneself as a fourth one in heaven. Know yourselves. When we heard this, we became sad. But when he saw that we were sad, he said, I say this to you, that you may know yourselves. Heaven's kingdom is like a head of grain.
Yeah, I wasn't doing nothing. I said, man, it just popped on my mind. You know, I'm divided. I'm divinely guided by the Most High. So I'm just saying, go ahead, go ahead and drop some more gems on tonight.
That sprouted in a field, and when it was ripe, it scattered its seed, and again it filled the field with heads of grain for another year. So with you, be eager to harvest for yourselves a head of grain of life, that you may be filled with the kingdom. And as long as I am with you, pay attention to me and trust in me. But when I am far from you, remember me, and remember me because I was with you, and you did not know me. What will they be who have known me? Woe to those who have heard and have not believed. Blessed will they be who have not seen, but yet have believed. Once again, I appeal to you. I am disclosed to you as I am building a house useful to you when you find shelter in it, and it will support your neighbor's house when theirs threatens to collapse. I tell you the truth. Woe to those for whom I was sent down here. Blessed will they be who are going up to the Father. Again, I warn you, you who exist, be like those who do not exist, that you may dwell with those who do not exist. Do not let heaven's kingdom become a desert within you. Do not be proud because of the light that enlightens. Rather, act toward yourselves as I myself have toward you. I have put myself under a curse for you, that you might be saved. The last word. Peter responded to these comments and said, Sometimes you urge us on toward heaven's kingdom, but at other times you turn us away, Master. Sometimes you encourage us, draw us toward faith, and promise us life, but at other times you drive us away from heaven's kingdom. The Master answered and said to us, I offered you faith many times and have revealed myself to you, James, and you have not known me. Now I see you are often rejoicing, and although you are delighted about the promise of life, you are sad and gloomy when you are taught about the kingdom. Nevertheless, you, through faith and knowledge, have received life. So disregard rejection when you hear it. But when you hear about the promise, be joyful all the more. I tell you the truth. Whoever will receive life and believe in the kingdom will never leave it, not even if the Father wants to banish him. This is all I shall tell you at this time. Now I shall ascend to the place from which I have come. When I was eager to go, you have driven me off, and instead of accompanying me, you have chased me away. Be attentive to the glory that awaits me, and when you have opened your hearts, listen to the hymns that await me up in heaven. Today I must take my place at the right hand of my Father. I have spoken my last word to you. Shall depart from you, for a chariot of spirit has carried me up, and from now on I shall strip myself, that I may clothe myself. So pay attention. Blessed are those who have proclaimed the Son before he came down, so that when I did come, I might ascend. Blessed 3 times over are those who were proclaimed by the Son before they came into being, so that you might share with them. Apocalyptic ascent. When he said this, he left. Peter and I knelt down, gave thanks, and sent our hearts up to heaven. We heard with our ears and saw with our eyes the noise of wars, a trumpet blast, and great turmoil.
I hope all is well with you tonight, Prophet.
When we passed beyond that place, we sent our minds up further. We saw with our eyes and heard with our ears hymns, angelic praises, and angelic rejoicing. Heavenly majesties were singing hymns, and we rejoiced too. Again, after this, we wished to send our spirits up to the majesty. When we ascended, we were not allowed to see or hear anything. For the other disciples called to us and asked us, What did you hear from the teacher? What did he tell you? Where did he go? We answered them, He ascended. He gave us his right hand and promised all of us life. He showed us children coming after us and commanded us to love them, since we are to be saved for their sakes. When they heard this, they believed the revelation, but they were angry about those who would be born. Not wishing to give them reason to take offense, I sent each of them to a different location. I myself went up to Jerusalem, praying that I might acquire a share with the loved ones who are to appear. Final advice. I pray that the beginning may come from you. This is how I can be saved. They will be enlightened through me, by my faith, and through another's that is better than mine. I wish mine to be the lesser. Do your best to be like them, and pray that you may acquire a share with them. Beyond what I have said, the Savior did not disclose any revelation to us on their behalf. We proclaim a share with those for whom the message was proclaimed, those whom the Lord has made his children.
Next, I'm going to sneak in here. I'm going to put it in the description later on after I finish. But y'all know I'll be bringing these gems My boy Jordan Maxwell on the Cold Wizard. Jordan Maxwell on the Cold Wizard. Strictly, this is strictly for educational purposes. Shay?
Just remind me though. Say it again.
Owning land as a sovereign citizen? Does that mean you have to
You know this my boy I played the other night. You know he finna bring the fire prophet.
building codes?
No. But the only way you can do it if you become a sovereign, you don't own land. Nobody owns anything.
Yeah.
But if you want to own the land and actually own it, so that even God can't touch it, you have to buy the property or the car or the jet plane, whatever it is you're buying. You have to get it under allodial title. Allodial. Allodial. Allodial title. You can buy a car, you can buy a jet plane, you can buy a house, but you buy it under what is called allodial title. And I've seen that done because I had a guy buy me a car not too long ago, and we went into the agency, and he says, I want to buy him a car. And so the guy said, okay. And so I picked out the car I wanted, and the guy buying it for me said, we want this allodial title. I knew about allodial. Now I just want to see what they're going to say. And he said, we want this car allodial title. And the sales manager said, fine, okay, we'll have to go back and go get the paperwork. He went back and got the special paperwork, came out and says allodial title. Allodial simply means nobody, including God or Jesus, can touch this property. You own it.
Land as well.
The land as well. If you buy a house or buy a property, you can put it in allodial title. That means if the freeway is coming through and they want your property, they cannot touch it.
Well, he giving them the look here. He giving the lowdown on man.
Huh?
We go hemp on a allodial property?
No, if you're interested in help. I just think it's funny that you're talking about that because the man who is the single biggest hemp grower in the goddamn state is my dearest friend.
Really? That's a project that both Phil and I are working on.
Well, then you need to talk to me
How about this?
because I live with him.
Look here, Empress Queen finna put the remix on y'all. I'm a DJ tonight. Out of This World by Neville Goddard.
Out of This World, Thinking Fourth Dimensionally,
Now
by Neville Goddard.
This is what we want right here.
Read by Adam Hammond.
Okay.
Originally published in 1949
Let's get it,
by
Prophet.
Goddard
Let's get it.
Publications. As a general disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed in this book belong to the author and may not always reflect those of Master Key Society or its affiliates. This recording is a production of Master Key Society for the purpose of research, study, and discussion. Chapter 1, Out of This World.
We finna get it now, Prophet.
And now I have told you before it come to pass, that when it is come to pass, ye might believe. John, chapter 14, verse 29.
Let's go.
Many persons, myself included, have observed events before they occurred. That is, before they occurred in this world of three dimensions. To be perfectly logical, they must have been out of this world. And whatever is there to be seen before it occurs here must be predetermined
Look here,
from the point of view of man.
Prophet. Boy, you can tell when the evil ones don't want you to get the word out. The internet won't act crazy with me now. But guess what? We ain't gonna let the dark one win.
Awake in a three-dimensional world. Thus the question arises, are we able to alter our future? My object in writing these pages is to indicate possibilities inherent in man, to show that man can alter his future, but thus altered, It forms again a deterministic sequence starting from the point of interference, a future that will be consistent with the alteration. The most remarkable feature of man's future is its flexibility. It is determined by his attitudes rather than by his acts.
I tell y'all
The
that.
cornerstone on which all
As
things
a
are
man
based
thinketh, so is
is
he.
man's concept of himself. He acts as he does and has the experiences that he does because his concept of himself is what it is, and for no other reason. Had he a different concept of self, he would act differently. A change of concept of self automatically alters his future, and a change in any term of his future series of experiences reciprocally alters his concept of self. Man's assumptions, which he regards as insignificant, produce effects that are considerable. Therefore, man should revise his estimate of an assumption and recognize its creative power. All changes take place in consciousness. The future, although prepared in every detail in advance, has several outcomes. At every moment of our lives, we have before us the choice of which of several futures we will choose. There are two actual outlooks on the world possessed by everyone: a natural focus and a spiritual focus. The ancient teachers called the one the carnal mind, the other the mind of Christ. We may differentiate them as ordinary waking consciousness, governed by our senses, and a controlled imagination, governed by desire. We recognize these two distinct centers of thought in the statement, "The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, for they are spiritually discerned." The natural view confines reality to the moment called now. To the natural view, the past and future are purely imaginary. The spiritual view, on the other hand, sees the contents of time. It sees events as distinct and separated as objects in space. The past and future are a present whole to the spiritual view. What is mental and subjective to the natural man is concrete and objective to the spiritual man. The habit of seeing only that which our senses permit renders us totally blind to what otherwise we could see. To cultivate the faculty of seeing the invisible, we should often deliberately disentangle our minds from the evidence of the senses and focus our attention on an invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has all the distinctness of reality. Earnest, concentrated thought, focused in a particular direction, shuts out other sensations and causes them to disappear. We have but to concentrate on the state desired in order to see it. The habit of withdrawing attention from the region of sensation and concentrating it on the invisible develops our spiritual outlook and enables us to penetrate beyond the world of sense and to see that which is invisible. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. Romans chapter 1, verse 20. This vision is completely independent of the natural faculties. Open it and quicken it. Without it, these instructions are useless, for the things of the Spirit are spiritually discerned. A little practice will convince us that we can, by controlling our imagination, reshape our future in harmony with our desire. Desire is the mainspring of action. We could not move a single finger unless we had a desire to move it. No matter what we do, we follow the desire, which at the moment dominates our minds. When we break a habit, our desire to break it is greater than our desire to continue in the habit. The desires which impel us to action are those that hold our attention. A desire is but an awareness of something we lack or need to make our life more enjoyable. Desires always have some personal gain in view. The greater the anticipated gain, the more intense is the desire. There is no absolutely unselfish desire. Where there is nothing to gain, there is no desire, and consequently no action. The spiritual man speaks to the natural man through the language of desire. The key to progress in life and to the fulfillment of dreams lies in ready obedience to its voice. Unhesitating obedience to its voice is an immediate assumption of the wish fulfilled. To desire a state is to have it. As Pascal has said, "You would not have sought me had you not already found me." Man, by assuming the feeling of his wish fulfilled and then living and acting on this conviction, alters the future in harmony with his assumption. Assumptions awaken what they affirm. As soon as man assumes the feeling of his wish fulfilled, his four-dimensional self finds ways for the attainment of this end, discovers methods for its realization. I know of no clearer definition of the means by which we realize our desires than to experience in imagination what we would experience in the flesh were we to achieve our goal. This experience of the end wills the means. With its larger outlook, the four-dimensional self then constructs the means necessary to realize the accepted end. The undisciplined mind finds it difficult to assume a state which is denied by the senses. Here is a technique that makes it easy to encounter events before they occur, to call things which are not seen as though they were. People have a habit of slighting the importance of simple things, but this simple formula for changing the future was discovered after years of searching and experimenting. The first step in changing the future is desire. That is, define your objective. Know definitely what you want. Secondly, construct an event which you believe you would encounter following the fulfillment of your desire. An event which implies fulfillment of your desire, something that will have the action of self predominant. Thirdly, immobilize the physical body and induce a condition akin to sleep. Lie on a bed or relax in a chair and imagine that you are sleepy. Then, with eyelids closed and your attention focused on the action you intend to experience, in imagination, mentally feel yourself right into the proposed action, imagining all the while that you are actually performing the action here and now. You must always participate in the imaginary action, not merely stand back and look on, but you must feel that you are actually performing the action so that the imaginary sensation is real to you. It is important always to remember that the proposed action must be one which follows the fulfillment of your desire. And also, you must feel yourself into the action until it has all the vividness and distinctness of reality. For example, suppose you desired promotion in office. Being congratulated would be an event you would encounter following the fulfillment of your desire. Having selected this action as the one you will experience in imagination, immobilize the physical body and induce a state akin to sleep, a drowsy state, but one in which you are still able to control the direction of your thoughts, a state in which you are attentive without effort. Now, imagine that a friend is standing before you. Put your imaginary hand into his. First, feel it to be solid and real. Then carry on an imaginary conversation with him in harmony with the action. Do not visualize yourself at a distance in point of space and at a distance in point of time being congratulated on your good fortune. Instead, make elsewhere here and the future now. The future event is a reality now in a dimensionally larger world. And, oddly enough, now in a dimensionally larger world is equivalent to here in the ordinary three-dimensional space of everyday life. The difference between feeling yourself in action, here and now, and visualizing yourself in action as though you were on a motion picture screen is the difference between success and failure. The difference will be appreciated if you will now visualize yourself climbing a ladder. Then, with eyelids closed, Imagine that a ladder is right in front of you and feel you are actually climbing it. Desire, physical immobility bordering on sleep, and imaginary action in which self feelingly predominates, here and now, are not only important factors in altering the future, but they are essential conditions in consciously projecting the spiritual self. If, when the physical body is immobilized, we become possessed of the idea to do something, and imagine that we are doing it here and now, and keep the imaginary action feelingly going right up until sleep ensues, we are likely to awaken out of the physical body to find ourselves in a dimensionally larger world, with a dimensionally larger focus, and actually doing what we desired and imagined we were doing in the flesh. Whether we awaken there or not, we are actually performing the action in the fourth dimensional world, and we will reenact it in the future here in the third dimensional world. Experience has taught me to restrict the imaginary action, to condense the idea which is to be the object of our meditation into a single act, and to reenact it over and over again until it has the feeling of reality. Otherwise, the attention will wander off along an associational track, and hosts of associated images will be presented to our attention. In a few seconds, they will lead us hundreds of miles away from our objective in point of space, and years away in point of time. If we decide to climb a particular flight of stairs because that is the likely event to follow the realization of our desire, then we must restrict the action to climbing that particular flight of stairs. Should our attention wander off, we must bring it back to its task of climbing that flight of stairs, and keep on doing so until the imaginary action has all the solidity and distinctness of reality. The idea must be maintained in the field of presentation without any sensible effort on our part. We must, with a minimum of effort, permeate the mind with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Drowsiness facilitates change because it favors attention without effort, but it must not be pushed to the stage of sleep, in which we shall no longer be able to control the movements of our attention, but rather a moderate degree of drowsiness, in which we are still able to direct our thoughts. The most effective way to embody a desire is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and then, in a relaxed and sleepy state, repeat over and over again, like a lullaby, any short phrase which implies fulfillment of our desire, such as, "Thank you," as though we addressed a higher power for having done it for us. If, however, we seek a conscious projection into a dimensionally larger world, then we must keep the action going right up until sleep ensues. Experience in imagination, with all the distinctness of reality, what would be experienced in the flesh were you to achieve your goal. And you shall, in time, meet it in the flesh as you met it in your imagination. Feed the mind with premises, that is, assertions presumed to be true, because assumptions, though unreal to the senses, if persisted in until they have the feeling of reality, will harden into facts. To an assumption, all means which promote its realization are good. It influences the behavior of all by inspiring in all the movements, the actions, and the words which tend towards its fulfillment. To understand how man molds his future in harmony with his assumption, we must know what we mean by a dimensionally larger world, for it is to a dimensionally larger world that we go to alter our future. The observation of an event before it occurs implies that the event is predetermined from the point of view of man in the three-dimensional world. Therefore, to change the conditions here in the 3 dimensions of space, we must first change them in the 4 dimensions of space. Man does not know exactly what is meant by a dimensionally larger world, and would no doubt deny the existence of a dimensionally larger self. He is quite familiar with the three dimensions of length, width, and height, and he feels that if there were a fourth dimension, it should be just as obvious to him as the dimensions of length, width, and height. A dimension is not a line. It is any way in which a thing can be measured that is entirely different from all other ways. That is, to measure a solid fourth dimensionally, we simply measure it in any direction except that of its length, width, and height.
Is Empress bringing you that fire or what?
There another way of measuring an object other than those of its length, width, and height? Time measures my life without employing the three dimensions of length, width, and height. There is no such thing as an instantaneous object. Its appearance and disappearance are measurable. It endures for a definite length of time. We can measure its lifespan without using the dimensions of length, width, and height. Time is definitely a fourth way of measuring an object. The more dimensions an object has, the more substantial and real it becomes. A straight line, which lies entirely in one dimension, acquires shape, mass, and substance by the addition of dimensions. What new quality would time, the fourth dimension, give, which would make it just as vastly superior to solids as solids are to surfaces, and surfaces are to lines? Time is a medium for changes in experience because all changes take time. The new quality is changeability. Observe that if we bisect a solid, its cross-section will be a surface. By bisecting a surface, we obtain a line, and by bisecting a line, we get a point. This means that a point is but a cross-section of a line, which is in turn but a cross-section of a surface, which is in turn but a cross-section of a solid, which is in turn, if carried to its logical conclusion, but a cross-section of a four-dimensional object. We cannot avoid the inference that all three-dimensional objects are but cross-sections of four-dimensional bodies, which means, when I meet you, I meet a cross-section of the four-dimensional you, the four-dimension self that is not seen. To see the four-dimensional self, I must see every cross-section or moment of your life from birth to death, and see them all as coexisting. My focus should take in the entire array of sensory impressions which you have experienced on Earth, plus those you might encounter.
I was in there brushing my teeth.
I should see them not in the order in which they were experienced by you, but as a present whole. Because change is the characteristic of the fourth dimension, I should see them in a state of flux as a living, animated whole. If we have all this clearly fixed in our minds, what does it mean to us in the three-dimensional world? It means that if we can move along time's length, we can see the future and alter it as we so desire. This world, which we think so solidly real, is a shadow out of which and beyond which we may at any time pass. It is an abstraction from a more fundamental and dimensionally larger world, a more fundamental world abstracted from a still more fundamental and dimensionally larger world, and so on to infinity.
Yeah, heavy.
The absolute is unattainable by any means or analysis, no matter how many dimensions we add to the world. Man can prove the existence of a dimensionally larger world simply by focusing his attention on an invisible state and imagining that he sees and feels it. If he remains concentrated in this state, his present environment will pass away, and he will awaken in a dimensionally larger world where the object of his contemplation will be seen as a concrete, objective reality. Intuitively, I feel that, were he to abstract his thoughts from this dimensionally larger world and retreat still farther within his mind, he would again bring about an externalization of time. He would discover that every time he retreats into his inner mind and brings about an externalization of time, space becomes dimensionally larger. And he would therefore conclude that both time and space are serial, and that the drama of life is but the climbing of a multitudinous dimensional time block. Scientists will one day explain why there is a serial universe. But in practice, how we use this serial universe to change the future is more important. To change the future, we need only concern ourselves with two worlds in the infinite series. The world we know by reason of our bodily organs, and the world we perceive independently of our bodily organs. Chapter 2. Assumptions become facts. Men believe in the reality of the external world because they do not know how to focus and condense their powers to penetrate its thin crust. This book has only one purpose: the removing of the veil of the senses, the traveling into another world. To remove the veil of the senses, we do not employ great effort. The objective world vanishes by turning our attention away from it. We have only to concentrate on the state desired in order to mentally see it. But to give it reality so that it will become an objective fact, we must focus attention upon the invisible state until it has the feeling of reality. When, through concentrated attention, our desire appears to possess the distinctness and feeling of reality, we have given it the right to become a visible, concrete fact. If it is difficult to control the direction of your attention while in a state akin to sleep, you may find gazing fixedly into an object very helpful. Do not look at its surface, but into and beyond any plain object, such as a wall, a carpet, or any other object which possesses depth. Arrange it to return as little reflection as possible. Imagine then that in this depth you are seeing and hearing what you want to see and hear until your attention is exclusively occupied by the imagined state. At the end of your meditation, when you awake from your controlled waking dream, you feel as though you had returned from a great distance. The visible world which you had shut out returns to consciousness, and by its very presence informs you that you have been self-deceived into believing that the object of your contemplation was real.
How about that?
But if you know that consciousness is the one and only reality, you will remain faithful to your vision, and by this sustained mental attitude, confirm your gift of reality, and prove that you have the power to give reality to your desires, that they may become visible, concrete facts. Define your ideal and concentrate your attention upon the idea of identifying yourself with your ideal. Assume the feeling of being it, the feeling that would be yours were you already the embodiment of your ideal. Then live and act upon this conviction. This assumption, though denied by the senses, if persisted in, will become fact. You will know when you have succeeded in fixing the desired state in consciousness by simply looking mentally at the people you know. In dialogues with yourself, you are less inhibited and more sincere than in actual conversations with others. Therefore, the opportunity for self-analysis arises when you are surprised by your mental conversations with others. If you see them as you formerly saw them, you have not changed your concept of self. For all changes of concepts of self result in a changed relationship to your world. In your meditation, allow others to see you as they would see you were this new concept of self a concrete fact. You always seem to others an embodiment of the ideal you inspire. Therefore, in meditation, when you contemplate others, you must be seen by them mentally as you would be seen by them physically were your concept of self an objective fact.
Well.
That is, in meditation, you imagine that they see you expressing that which you desire to be. If you assume that you are what you want to be, your desire is fulfilled, and in fulfillment, all longing is neutralized. You cannot continue desiring what you have already realized. Your desire is not something you labor to fulfill. It is recognizing something you already possess. It is assuming the feeling of being that which you desire to be. Believing and being are one. The conceiver and his conception are one. Therefore, that which you conceive yourself to be can never be so far off as even to be near, for nearness implies separation. If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth.
That's right.
Being is the substance of things hoped for,
That's right.
the evidence of things not yet seen. If you assume that you are what you want to be, then you will see others as they are related to your assumption. If, however, it is the good of others that you desire, then, in meditation, you must represent them to yourself as already being that which you desire them to be. It is through desire that you rise above your present sphere, and the road from longing to fulfillment is shortened as you experience in imagination what you would experience in the flesh, were you already the embodiment of the ideal you desire to be. I have stated that man has at every moment of time the choice before him which of several futures he will encounter. But the question arises, how is this possible when the experiences of man, awake in the three-dimensional world, are predetermined, as his observation of an event before it occurs implies? This ability to change the future will be seen if we liken the experiences of life on Earth to this printed page. Man experiences events on Earth singly and successively in the same way that you are now experiencing the words of this page. Imagine that every word on this page represents a single sensory impression. To get the context, to understand my meaning, you focus your vision on the first word in the upper left-hand corner, and then move your focus across the page from left to right, letting it fall on the words singly and successively. By the time your eyes reach the last word on this page, you have extracted my meaning. Suppose, however, on looking at the page with all the printed words thereon equally present, you decided to rearrange them. You could, by rearranging.
Oh, shoot. Hold on, y'all.
David DeAngelis presents
I did it
Ask and It
again.
Is Given, The Law of Attraction According to the Teachings of Neville Goddard by Neville Goddard. Digitally narrated using the voice of Edward Herman.
That is not what I want. There we go.
You decided to rearrange them.
What I was going to say is, see, I do that every time I try to put it on pause. I mess around. I be messing around with 2 or 3 different devices. So y'all know I'm just, I'm still learning. So y'all got to overlook my little mistakes, okay? And I was going to say something. Oh yeah, he said, look here, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this again myself. But baby, he teaches. Look here, he breaking it down, boo.
You could, by rearranging them, tell an entirely different story. In fact, you could tell many different stories. A dream is nothing more than uncontrolled 4-dimensional thinking, or the rearrangement of both past and future sensory impressions. Man seldom dreams of events in the order in which he experiences them when awake. He usually dreams of 2 or more events which are separated in time, fused into a single sensory impression. Or, in his dream, he so completely rearranges his single waking sensory impressions that he does not recognize them when he encounters them in his waking state. For example, I dreamed that I delivered a package to the restaurant in my apartment building. The hostess said to me, "You can't leave that there." Whereupon the elevator operator gave...
You see, I don't listen to a lot of these things, but you still, sometimes you don't forget some of it because I be trying to digest so much. So then when I hear it again, you always go, no matter how many times you listen to something or read something or watch something, you're going to always catch something that you missed the last time. Ashe?
a few letters, and as I thanked him for them, he in turn thanked me. At this point, the night elevator operator appeared and waved a greeting to me. The following day, as I left my apartment, I picked up a few letters which had been placed at my door. On my way down, I gave the day elevator operator a tip and thanked him for taking care of my mail, whereupon he thanked me for the tip. On my return home that day, I overheard a doorman say to a delivery man, "You can't leave that there." As I was about to take the elevator up to my apartment, I was attracted by a familiar face in the restaurant, and as I looked in, the hostess greeted me with a smile. Late that night, I escorted my dinner guests to the elevator, and as I said goodbye to them, the night operator waved goodnight to me. By simply rearranging a few of the single sensory impressions I was destined to encounter, and by fusing two or more of them into single sensory impressions, I constructed a dream which differed quite a bit from my waking experience. When we have learned to control the movements of our attention in the four-dimensional world, we shall be able to consciously create circumstances in the three-dimensional world. We learn this control through the waking dream, where our attention can be maintained without effort, for attention minus effort is indispensable to changing the future. We can, in a controlled waking dream, consciously construct an event which we desire to experience in the three-dimensional world. The sensory impressions we use to construct our waking dream are present realities displaced in time, or the four-dimensional world. All that we do in constructing the waking dream is to select from the vast array of sensory impressions those which, when they are properly arranged, imply that we have realized our desire. With the dream clearly defined, we relax in a chair and induce a state of consciousness akin to sleep, a state which, although bordering on sleep, leaves us in conscious control of the movements of our attention. When we have achieved that state, we experience in imagination what we would experience in reality, were this waking dream an objective fact. In applying this technique to change the future, it is important always to remember that the only thing which occupies the mind during the waking dream is the waking dream, the predetermined action which implies the fulfillment of our desire. How the waking dream becomes physical fact is not our concern. Our acceptance of the waking dream as physical reality wills the means for its fulfillment. Let me again lay the foundation of changing the future, which is nothing more than a controlled waking dream. 1. Define your objective. Know definitely what you want. 2. Construct an event which you believe you will encounter following the fulfillment of your desire, something which will have the action of self-predominant, an event which implies the fulfillment of your desire. 3. Immobilize the physical body and induce a state of consciousness akin to sleep. Then mentally feel yourself right into the proposed action, imagining all the while that you are actually performing the action here and now, so that you experience in imagination what you would experience in the flesh, were you now to realize your goal. Experience has convinced me that this is the perfect way to achieve my goal. However, my own many failures would convict me were I to imply that I have completely mastered the movements of my attention. I can, however, with the ancient teacher say, "This one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before, I press toward the mark for the prize." Chapter 3. Power of Imagination. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. John chapter 8, verse 32. Men claim that a true judgment must conform to the external reality to which it relates. This means that if I, while imprisoned, suggest to myself that I am free, and succeed in believing that I am free, it is true that I believe in my freedom, but it does not follow that I am free, for I may be the victim of illusion. But because of my own experiences, I have come to believe in so many strange things that I see little reason to doubt the truth of things that are beyond my experience. The ancient teachers warned us not to judge from appearances because, said they, the truth need not conform to the external reality to which it relates. They claimed that we bore false witness if we imagined evil against another, that no matter how real our belief appears to be, how truly it conforms to the external reality to which it relates, if it does not make free the one of whom we hold the belief, it is untrue and therefore a false judgment. We are called upon to deny the evidence of our senses and to imagine as true of our neighbor that which makes him free. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. To know the truth of our neighbor, we must assume that he is already that which he desires to be. Any concept we hold of another that is short of his fulfilled desire will not make him free, and therefore cannot be the truth. Instead of learning my craft in schools where attending courses and seminars is considered a substitute for self-acquired knowledge, my schooling was devoted almost exclusively to the power of imagination. I sat for hours imagining myself to be other than that which my reason and my senses dictated, until the imagined states were vivid as reality. So vivid that passerby became but a part of my imagination and acted as I would have them. By the power of imagination, my fantasy led theirs and dictated to them their behavior and the discourse they held together while I was identified with my imagined state. Man's imagination is the man himself, and the world as imagination sees it is the real world. But it is our duty to imagine all that is lovely and of good report. The Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh upon the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh upon the heart.
That's right.
As a man thinketh in his heart,
So is he. I say it all the time.
In meditation, when the brain grows
Thank you,
luminous,
Lord.
I find my imagination endowed with the magnetic power to attract to me whatsoever I desire.
That's right.
Desire is the power imagination uses to fashion life about me as I fashion it within myself. I first desire to see a certain person or scene, and then I look as though I were seeing that which I want to see, and the imagined state becomes objectively real. I desire to hear, and then I listen as though I were hearing, and the imagined voice speaks that which I dictate, as though it had initiated the message. I could give you many examples to prove my arguments, to prove that these imagined states do become physical realities. But I know that my examples will awaken in all who have not met the like, or who are not inclined towards my arguments, a most natural incredulity. Nevertheless, experience has convinced me of the truth of the statement, He calleth those things which be not as though they were. Romans chapter 4, verse 17. For I have, in intense meditation, called things that were not seen as though they were, and the unseen not only became seen, but eventually became physical realities. By this method, first desiring and then imagining that we are experiencing that which we desire to experience, we can mold the future in harmony with our desire. But let us follow the advice of the prophet and think only the lovely and the good. For the imagination waits on us as indifferently and as swiftly when our nature is evil as when it is good. From us spring forth good and evil. I have set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 15. Desire and imagination are the enchanter's wand of fable, and they draw to themselves their own affinities. They break forth best when the mind is in a state akin to sleep. I have written with some care and detail the method I use to enter the dimensionally larger world, but I shall give one more formula for opening the door of the larger world. In a dream, In a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men, and sealeth their instruction. Job chapter 33, verses 15 and 16. In dream, we are usually the servant of our vision, rather than its master, but the internal fantasy of dream can be turned into an external reality. In dream, as in meditation, we slip from this world into a dimensionally larger world, and I know that the forms in dream are not flat two-dimensional images which modern psychologists believe them to be. They are substantial realities of the dimensionally larger world, and I can lay hold of them. I have discovered that if I surprise myself dreaming, I can lay hold of any inanimate or stationary form of the dream, a chair, a table, a stairway, a tree, and command myself to awake. At the command to awake, while firmly holding on to the object of the dream, I am pulled through myself with the distinct feeling of awakening from dream. I awaken in another sphere, holding the object of my dream, to find that I am no longer the servant of my vision, but its master, for I am fully conscious and in control of the movements of my attention. It is in this fully conscious state, when we are in control of the direction of thought, that we call things that are not seen as though they were. In this state, we call things by wishing and assuming the feeling of our wish fulfilled. Unlike the world of three dimensions, where there is an interval between our assumption and its fulfillment, in the dimensionally larger world, there is an immediate realization of our assumption. The external reality instantly
Hey, Cherry
mirrors
B, what's
our
going on,
assumption.
love? How
Here
you
there is
been?
no
How your
need to
move go?
wait 4 months till harvest. We look again as though we saw, and lo and behold, the fields are already white to harvest. In this
I
dimensionally
heard
larger
that.
world, ye shall not need to fight. Set yourselves, stand ye still, and see the salvation of the Lord with you. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 17. And because that greater world is slowly passing through our three-dimensional world, we can, by the power of imagination, mold our world in harmony with our desire. Look as though you saw. Listen as though you heard. Stretch forth your imaginary hand as though you touched, and your assumptions will harden into facts. To those who believe that a true judgment must conform to the external reality to which it relates, this will be foolishness and a stumbling block. But I preach and practice the fixing in consciousness of that which man desires to realize. Experience convinces me that fixed attitudes of mind, which do not conform to the external reality to which they relate and are therefore called imaginary,
Looking good, girl.
things which are not, will nevertheless bring to naught things that are. I do not wish to write a book of wonders, but rather to turn man's mind back to the one and only reality that the ancient teachers worshipped as God. All that was said of God was in reality said of man's consciousness. So we may say that, according as it is written, he that glorieth, let him glory in his own consciousness. No man needs help to direct him in the application of this law of consciousness. I am is the self-definition of the absolute, the root out of which everything grows. I am the vine. What is your answer to the eternal question, who am I? Your answer determines the part you play in the world's drama. Your answer, that is, your concept of self, need not conform to the external reality to which it relates. This great truth is revealed in the statement, let the weak say, I am strong. Joel chapter 3, verse 10. Look back over the good resolutions with which many past New Years are encumbered. They lived a little while and then they died. Why? Because they were severed from their root. Assume that you are that which you want to be. Experience in imagination what you would experience in the flesh, were you already that which you want to be. Remain faithful to your assumption so that you define yourself as that which you have assumed. Things have no life if they are severed from their roots, and our consciousness, our
Prophet, I know you be listening, babe,
is the root of all that springs in our world. If ye believe not that I am he, ye shall die in your sins. John chapter 8, verse 24. That is, if I do not believe that I am already that which I desire to be, then I remain as I am, and die in my present concept of self. There is no power outside of the consciousness of man to resurrect and make alive that which man desires to experience. That man who is accustomed to call up at will whatever image he pleases will be, by virtue of the power of his imagination, master of his fate. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. John chapter 11, verse 25. Ye shall know the truth,
and the truth shall
and the
make you
truth
free.
shall make you free.
Amen.
Chapter 4. No one to change but self. And for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they also might be sanctified through the truth. John chapter 17, verse 19.
All right, what's going on, Kenneth?
The ideal we serve and strive to attain could never be evolved from us, were it not potentially involved in our nature. It is now my purpose to retell and to emphasize an experience of mine printed by me 2 years ago. I believe these quotations from The Search will help us to understand the operation of the law of consciousness and show us that we have.
I see now most of all my people like to come in at night, later on at night, to watch. Y'all must be out there on the West Coast or somewhere. I'm on the East Coast.
One to change but self. Once in an idle interval at sea, I meditated on the perfect state and wondered what I would be were I of too pure eyes to behold iniquity, if to me all things were pure, and were I without condemnation. As I became lost in this fiery brooding, I found myself lifted above the dark environment of the senses. So intense was feeling, I felt myself a being of fire dwelling in a body of air. Voices as from a heavenly chorus, with the exaltation of those who had been conquerors in a conflict with death, were singing, "He is risen, he is risen," and intuitively I knew they meant me. Then I seemed to be walking in the night. I soon came upon a scene that might have been the ancient pool of Bethesda, for in this place lay a great multitude of impotent folk.
Yeah, when I be getting up, y'all just be going to bed.
Halt, withered, waiting not for the moving of the water as of tradition, but waiting for me. As I came near, without thought or effort on my part, they were, one after the other, molded as by the magician of the beautiful. Eyes, hands, feet, all missing members were drawn from some invisible reservoir and molded in harmony with that perfection which I felt springing within me. When all were made perfect, the chorus exulted, "It is finished." Then the scene dissolved and I awoke. I know this vision was the result of my intense meditation upon the idea of perfection, for my meditations invariably bring about union with the state contemplated. I had been so completely absorbed within the idea that for a while I had become what I contemplated, and the high purpose with which I had for that moment identified myself drew the companionship of high things and fashioned the vision in harmony with my inner nature. The ideal with which we are united works by association of ideas to awaken 1,000 moods to create a drama in keeping with the central idea.
Thank you for stopping in.
Mystical experiences have convinced me that there is no way to bring about the outer perfection we seek other than by the transformation of ourselves.
I know I can look for a prophet.
As soon as we succeed in transforming ourselves, the world will melt magically before our eyes and reshape itself in harmony with that which our transformation affirms. In the divine economy, nothing is lost. We cannot lose anything save by descent from the sphere where the thing has its natural life. There is no transforming power in death, and whether we are here or there, we fashion the world that surrounds us by the intensity of our imagination and feeling, and we illuminate or darken our lives by the concepts we hold of ourselves. Nothing is more important to us than our conception of ourselves, and especially is this true of our concept of the dimensionally greater one within us. Those who help or hinder us, whether they know it or not, are the servants of that law which shapes outward circumstances in harmony with our inner nature. It is our conception of ourselves which frees or constrains us, though it may use material agencies to achieve its purpose. Because life molds the outer world to reflect the inner arrangement of our minds, there is no way of bringing about the outer perfection we seek other than by the transformation of ourselves. No help cometh from without. The hills to which we lift our eyes are those of an inner range. It is thus to our own consciousness that we must turn as to the only reality, the only foundation on which all phenomena can be explained. We can rely absolutely on the justice of this law to give us only that which is of the nature of ourselves. To attempt to change the world before we change our concept of ourselves is to struggle against the nature of things. There can be no outer change until there is first an inner change. As within, so without. I am not advocating philosophical indifference when I suggest that we should imagine ourselves as already that which we want to be, living in a mental atmosphere of greatness, rather than using physical means and arguments to bring about the desired change. Everything we do, unaccompanied by a change of consciousness, is but futile readjustment of surfaces. However we toil or struggle, we can receive no more than our assumptions affirm. To protest against anything which happens to us is to protest against the law of our being and our rulership over our own destiny. The circumstances of my life are too closely related to my conception of myself not to have been formed by my own spirit from some dimensionally larger storehouse of my being. If there is pain to me in these happenings, I should look within myself for the cause, for I am moved here and there and made to live in a world in harmony with my concept of myself. Intense meditation brings about a union with the state contemplated, and during this union we see visions, have experiences, and behave in keeping with our change of consciousness. This shows us that a transformation of consciousness will result in a change of environment and behavior. All wars prove that violent emotions are extremely potent in precipitating mental rearrangements. Every great conflict has been followed by an era of materialism and greed in which the ideals for which the conflict ostensibly was waged are submerged. This is inevitable because war evokes hate, which impels a descent in consciousness from the plane of the ideal to the level where the conflict is waged. If we would become as emotionally aroused over our ideals as we become over our dislikes, we would ascend to the plane of our ideal as easily as we now descend to the level of our hates. Love and hate have a magical transforming power, and we grow through their exercise into the likeness of what we contemplate. By intensity of hatred, we create in ourselves the character we imagine in our enemies. Qualities die for want of attention, so the unlovely states might best be rubbed out by imagining beauty for ashes and joy for mourning, rather than by direct attacks on the state from which we would be free. Whatsoever things are lovely and of good report, think on these things, for we become that with which we are en rapport.
That's right.
There is nothing to change but our concept of self. As soon as we succeed in transforming self, our world will dissolve and reshape itself in harmony with that which our change affirms.
So, with what you have, all you need is exactly what you have, for you have the mind of God. It's not a different mind, the same mind. And you simply rearrange the mind by a mere assumption. What would the feeling be like were it true? That I am now the man that I want to be, now the woman that I want to be. But it's added, but
I see
persevere.
that. I be trying,
You must persevere in it. If I call you now and you
I
answer,
be trying
one
to go
thing.
through different times,
Well,
but
when
I
you
noticed
respond
that
an hour later to the same call,
I be trying to, try to avoid, running into other people, but it's hard. It's just impossible to do. Because I've noticed that most of the traffic is on, between I think it was like between 6 and 12 o'clock. So this is the best time, so statistics, the analytics say this is the best time, to go live. So I try to go live so I can get my little views in.
then if you persevere, you will. If now, an hour later, you think of yourself as you now, when you dare to assume that you are now the man that you want to be, an hour later, are you still assuming that state? If you're not persevering. You are the hearer who looked into the mirror with his natural face, he saw it. Then he went his way and at once forgot what he looked like. So if 1 hour from now you're not still assuming that you are the man that you want to be, you've forgotten. You are the hearer and not the doer. And he warns us of the vast difference between being a hearer and being a doer.
That's right.
The doer acts. God only acts and is in existing beings or men.
I trust that you'll find tonight's message a very practical one. Because today, there's so many reading the paper and believing what they see and what they hear on radio and TV. There's a depression and a recession and this, that, and the other. So tonight, let me tell you who you are. We're told in Scripture, this is the 19th chapter, the 26th verse of Matthew. With God, all things are possible.
Come on with it.
When we are told in the earliest gospel, the book of Mark, the 9th chapter, the 23rd verse, all things are possible to him who believes.
That's right.
Divine imagination.
See, that's the whole thing. People don't have faith. They say they have faith, but they don't. Because if you have faith, once you plant that seed, you leave it there. And you as long as you got that faith, it manifests. But you have to think positive. You can't anytime that doubt creeps in, it hinders your manifestations.
Has no restrictions placed upon it. Human imagining has one restriction placed upon it: to believe.
That's right.
All things are possible to him who believes.
That's right.
So they equate man, speaking of you, with God. But on this level, it is believing. Can you believe it? There is no other limitation other than man's capacity to believe what
If you believe, you shall receive.
he has imagined. All things are possible to him who believes.
Mm-hmm.
So the only restriction placed upon man is his ability to believe.
That's right.
What his reason, what his senses deny. That's all. No other restriction. Now I turn to the 115th Psalm. And here,
as above, so below.
I think the whole vast world has been guilty of this. The psalmist claims, our God is in the heavens. Their idols are made First of all, our God is in the heavens, and he does what he pleases. No matter what it is, he does what he pleases. Their idols are made with human hands
That's right.
of silver and gold.
Mm-hmm.
They have voices, but they speak not. Or rather, they have mouths, but they speak not.
That's right.
And eyes that do not see.
Closed mouth don't get fed.
They have ears that do not hear. And they have hands that do not feel. And feet that do not walk. And there is no sound from their throats. Those who make them are like them. And those who believe in them are like them. To believe in anything outside of yourself as the cause of the phenomena of life, you're believing in something made with the human hand. I don't care what you call it. Now, who is this God who does as he...
Just like I say, how you expect to get blessings? Some people so stingy they don't want to give nobody a penny. But money is energy. You have to give to receive. I say.
That is equated with man. When you try to think of anything other than your own wonderful human imagination. Our God is in the heavens, and we are told that heaven is within you.
That's right.
In the 17th chapter of the book of Luke.
That's right.
That God is within you.
That's right.
If he is within me, what in me does anything that it pleases? Nothing but my imagination. I can imagine anything in the world. The most incredible thing I can imagine. But as man, one condition is imposed upon me. I must believe it.
That's right.
If I can persuade myself of the reality of that which I have imagined, no power in the world can stop it from coming to pass. Man creates his objective world out of imagination and faith.
That's right.
These are the substances out of which he actually projects and objectifies.
Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Well, there is nothing but God, and God is man's own wonderful human imagination. Man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us, and we in him. The eternal body of man is the imagination,
Right.
and that is God himself.
I
So divine imagining, yes, it's instantaneous, but when it's keyed low into the human form, then there's one condition imposed upon it. Can I believe? So I now come to the point of faith. What is faith? Faith is the subjective appropriation of the objective hope. So I have a hope. I would like to be this, that, or the other in this world. Or I would like someone, a friend of mine, to be this, that, or the other. Now I must appropriate it subjectively. I go down in my imagination and I simply conceive a scene which would imply that it's true. And I appropriate it. How do I appropriate a scene? I create a scene which would imply that it is true. Bringing the individual or friends before me, and I can have friends tell me, have you heard the good news? And I will act as though I didn't know what is the good news. Have you heard the news about, and they mention my friend, and I listen eagerly to what they're telling me about my friend. I'm appropriating subjectively my objective hope. All I have to do then is to persist in that state. As Shakespeare said in his Antony and Cleopatra, it hath been taught us from the primal state that that which is was wished until it were. But he used the pronoun he. but you can use it of anything in this world. But he said that he which wishing the being to come into being. But you can make it for a home, a place, or anything in the world. You need not confine it to a friend. That he which is was wished until
I manifest.
he will. You can make it or there or anything else in the world. It's simply from the very beginning. The primal wish was simply to so give myself to a state that I lost myself in the state and I remain in that state until the state became objectified within my will. This is what the Bible is teaching everyone in this world.
I say, my loves, this has been your girl, Lippers Queen. I'm gonna call it a night. I don't know. I got a couple of live scheduled for tomorrow. Long up, I would switch them up, and I might do a couple more of these broadcasts here from Carl Young and Neville Goddard. I don't know. Y'all just drop me some comments, in the box. Let me know what y'all want to hear, because this is your channel. I'm here for the collective, I say. Everyone have a blessed night. I hope your loved ones and everyone is doing well. And Epis Queen, love you. Always remember that. I love you. I love everyone. That's what it's all about, love. Y'all, I'm trying to chomp on some ice cream. That's what it's all about, love. Love for one another, my loves. That's the only way we're going to heal this world. I say, always go within, my babies, so you never go without.